Recording in progress.
Tell me when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Call to order the Tuesday, August 15th Common Council meeting, City of Franklin at 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Hopfer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Present.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Alderwoman Day. Here. Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item B, a citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to approach the podium after we verify that it's working. See? Oh, please state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Mira, welcome.
My timer. There we go. Hi, my name is Mira Kresvik. I live at 8810 South 51st Street in Franklin. I've lived here for a while, since 71 or so. The reason why I'm here tonight is I want to share with the community that Toys for Tots is holding its first golf tournament in Franklin. So it'll be on the Oakwood Golf Course a month from today. There's a QR code to get to the webpage. Any golfers that I missed? Thank you. There's a QR code to get to the webpage. If you don't golf, they are looking for sponsors for the holes. So I think it's $100 to sponsor a hole or a veteran. That's about it. And
Thank you for doing this. Thank you. Mr. Lewandowski? Mr. Benning?
Tom Benning, 11720 West Ryan Road. I'm here tonight just to voice my opinion, I guess. I've seen where the city wants to put out another TIF for Carmex. I have absolutely nothing against Carmex. Me and the mayor both grew up pretty much next to Carmex. But regardless of what the company is, they're dealing with a perfectly good piece of farmland and they're a perfectly healthy company. Why is the city financing their expenses? To me, it's not fair to the taxpayers. If the city wants to help out and give them a short-term loan, something that can be paid back in a, say, term of maybe 10 years, I can see that. But this TIF was never intended for them purposes. The TIF is basically intended to take a piece of blighted land and make it usable. The land they want to use is perfectly fine. Their company is perfectly healthy. They want to expand. So why should the taxpayers be funding this or helping to fund it? That's really all I wanted to say. I just think that that's wrong. I think there's other options you could confront with them. Maybe something that would be paid back at a gain to the taxpayer rather than a loss. An individual citizen wants to build something. An individual citizen is liable for the expense. And here we have a company that, what company wouldn't want somebody else to pay their expenses? So I just hope you can keep that in mind. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing no one else, close citizen comment period. There's one thing before we move on to the minutes. Item G11, the concept review item will not be taken up at tonight's meeting. It will not be taken up on the concept review at tonight's meeting. For Karma, G11. Approval of the minutes, regular common council meeting of August 1st, 2023. I believe there was a revised copy of the minutes placed in front of you tonight.
Move to approve as revised.
So we've got, okay, we got aggressive tonight. So we got Alderman Barber and Alderman Holfer. First and second, any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We've got no hearings under D. David, no organizational business under E. Edward, no letters and petitions under F. Frank. G1, we're going to go into this. We are going to take them individually because there is some financial decisions made with this and opposed to taking all 6 at once. Would you like to come up to the front here, Lauren? Thank you, Madam Director. So I will read each motion, and if there's questions from council or anyone else, then just please answer. Okay? Under G1, motion to allow the Director of Health and Human Services to accept the 2023 Division of Public Health Consolidated Contracts to continue funding health department grants.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. You got that? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G2, motion to approve the Director of Health and Human Services to accept the updated Centers for Disease Control Public Health Workforce Development Grant for COVID-19 mitigation and recovery efforts.
So moved.
We have Barber and Holfer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G3, motion to approve the Director of Health and Human Services to purchase a Health Department vehicle as indicated in 2022 approved City of Franklin Health Department budget.
So moved.
Second.
So we've got Holfer and Day. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G4, authorization to execute contract with Adair Floors for carpeting in the health wing.
So moved.
Oh, Mr. City Attorney?
I will be abstaining from,
Okay, no, I was
Vote
gonna
on
get
that.
back to you. I wasn't sure if you had
well,
something.
the city attorney pointed to me. I thought he was
Okay.
going to speak first. My
All right,
apologies.
Alderwoman Eichman, you are asking to recuse yourself from this vote.
Correct.
Understood? Mr. City Attorney, anything else on that?
Just briefly, got a call from the health officer this morning regarding there were a couple of, what they did as a bid process, but not in the public bid form, and that's not required for under $25,000, and I explained that. I understand there were 2 of these responses to the request for offers, and the other one, after getting submitted a bid and it was more, as what I was told, than this particular one to Adair. And I was told the only other bidder was Stu's Flooring, which is why I advised the Alderwoman to abstain on this subject matter. In any event, she said she wanted to work to see if there could be something better and got more clarification or something with regard to what flooring would go in. And their bid offer was reduced. So this, after it was reduced, it's around $559 less than this Adair's floor. And so, I just thought, inform the council of that fact, and if the council's interested. But since only Adair was in the title, subject matter of this item, thought would be to bring it back if you wanted to do that. And if it's worth the $559 change. And the Alderwoman was A-okay, just go ahead and, this was trying to help as I understand it, instead of just saying, no, I want my company that I work for to get it. Just thought I'd let you know.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. So, Madam Director, my question to you is, is this the better product that we are getting? Obviously, we want to make sure that whatever we put in there is going to be long-standing. And I understand we all want to save the taxpayers money, but if we're going to put a cheaper product in, it's going to be done in a couple of years. I don't want that. I'd rather have something that's going to last for decades. Since you're in the oldest wing of the building since 1970, not much changes down there. So is this something that's going to last?
I deferred that to Bob, our maintenance supervisor, and he did assure me that either company, this was when we were getting bids, that either company he'd be very confident would do a great job. And quotes are comparable in what they would be offering us for materials.
That was my concern, is the product, that it's going to be as longevity, the longevity is going to be there. you know, I definitely want to save the money for the taxpayers. I want to make sure that we're putting a quality product in and not revisiting this in future. Any further comment on this? Alderwoman Day?
Just procedurally, so maybe more for the city attorney than anyone else. Is there any concern that if we didn't move forward with what's in front of us today, that we would have to go back to Adair and let them know that the other company was able to submit a second bid after seeing the first bid that came in from the competitor? It just seems a little
That was-
rough with the,
That was my response early this morning on the phone call from the health officer to ask Mr. Tesh, give them a call and let them know that and see if there was any response, but I didn't hear anything back.
I talked to Bob and he did say he'd be willing to call them if the council directed that we need to go back there. Mostly I called Jesse this morning to understand if I could even accept a new quote if the council were to say go back. So that's what our discussion yielded. But at this point, I'd feel confident going forward with either of the companies. We have Adair on here because that's the one we selected based on the opportunity of them both to provide us quotes when Bob met with them on site.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, still have the floor?
And just on my questions this morning, because I'm understanding that, well, first of all, this is not a public works project under the statutes and ordinances. And I understand that there's no formal policy and no request for bids said, thou shalt submit by this date, and if you are the lowest bidder, we shall accept that bid over others. And I'm understanding there's nothing akin to that involved, but I understand the fairness involved in letting Adair know about it and see if they want to do anything different.
Mr. Barber?
I made the motion to accept. I also have a concern about why there was a situation where someone could rebid a bid that was already submitted. I don't know if that's going to be standard practice or is this a one-time exception?
Mr. City Attorney?
Once again, this is not some formal process, and it makes it difficult by calling this a bid. To me, it's a proposal, and out there in the real world, a department head in this amount of money could just know somebody that does this well and get on the phone and say, hey, you willing to do this? Give me a quote, and I'll take it to the council. Doesn't have to be competitive bidding.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Olfer.
and the question I have is, did the second bid come in after they had actually seen the first bid, the dollar amount?
I don't know the detail on that stuff, but abstained.
I don't know the details on that part either. You know, do you understand, Madam Director?
From my understanding, once they were able to look at the quote that Adair had provided us and know the level of detail, they then realized what product they could offer us that was comparable and submitted a new bid, but we did not solicit for another bid. And therefore, I'm feeling fine with proposing that we accept the Adair bid and then move forward with the project that was grant funded that we accepted earlier this year.
Mr. City Attorney, anything more on that? If not,
Only
I'll-
that I was hearing that what's been termed the bid had something about some kind of category of carpeting that was general and just fit into some thousands of types out there in the flooring carpeting world. And that's when Stu's Flooring got further detail on what it was or something, because Adair's had done much less, and they thought, okay, well, if that's a different category and what this was supposed to mean on the request, then we could do that. Here's what we came up with. So that's my understanding. I was not involved in any of the facts.
Mr. City Engineer, you have something?
So I'm not familiar with what happened here, but just to let everyone know that it is quite common for DPW and utilities, and we'll ask for quotes. We don't call them bids. So bids is a completely different process in our minds. Quotes, there is no formal process, correct? Sometimes we just get one if there's really only one place to look at that. But we do try to make sure that they're fair and reasonable. thing that we're getting quotes on. Sometimes we do get more than one quote. I can't say that I've ever recall where we've ever taken it back and shown somebody what somebody else did to do that. So that's the only unusual part, but for the most part, they're correct. Quotes do not have to go through the bid process, and
Thank
things
you.
appropriate.
Mr. Barber?
If the Director of Health is comfortable with Adair, I will restate my motion to approve as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Barber and Holfer, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
So we have 5 ayes, no noes, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Very good. G5, motion to approve the Franklin Health Department to accept monetary donations in amount of $2,100 for the annual bike rodeo.
So move.
Second.
We have Barber and Hassan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G6, motion to approve the Franklin Health Department to accept a monetary donation amount of $300.
So move.
Mayor, I'm also going to be abstaining from this as a member of the Franklin Lioness Lions Club.
Very good. Alderman Hassan and Alderman Barbers, first and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 1 abstention. 5 ayes, no noes, 1 abstention, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
G7, a final resolution directing payment and levy of special assessment for the cost of water main extension on West Minnesota Avenue from South 51st Street to South 49th Street. Mr. City Engineer.
So this is tabled from last meeting. I think generally there was a resident who felt it was unfair that he was having to pay more for a lateral than his neighbors were. I explained why that happened last meeting. Having said that, the thought is that perhaps it would be very difficult to average them out now, because then the other half of the residents would then have to increase their assessment. So realizing what the options were, I proposed that if we were to average the actual cost of the lateral, I took the folks that had to pay more than that average, and if you will, the city would eat the difference to bring that down. And so that's how this has changed from last meeting. I did have an ordinance proposed earlier this year that would average that for all projects, and I might possibly bring that back for a consideration in the future.
I move to approve.
Second.
Got a first and a second.
One quick comment.
Oh, Mr. Holfer.
At our last discussion, when you said the city would eat that, that will come out of your budget, correct?
So there is a budget for the project, so it would come out of that project.
So something else would be deferred if needed. I understand it's a small amount. Just wanted to make sure because it wasn't in this updated.
So I think we're going to, when we did a final payment for the entire project, I think we're actually be a little bit under what we anticipated as of last meeting, so.
Good, thank you.
Excellent. Is there a motion? We have first and a second. Mr. City Attorney, you have something on that?
And Mr. City Engineer, pursuant to all of these special assessment statutes and city ordinances, this plan for how the properties are all going to be specially assessed is fair and reasonable to all the property owners, and equal in that sense.
Yes, sir, I believe I stated that, something like that in the report.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you. We've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G8, a resolution to purchase wetland mitigation credits from Barnes Prairie Wetland Mitigation Bank for South 116th Street Trail Project in the amount of $143,000. Mr. City Engineer.
So this is for the 116th Street Trail. We actually did a wetland determination, and with all the reports went into DNR and Corps of Engineers, it was determined that we had to do some mitigation for some of the plants that we disturbed. There is only one option, so the project actually covers 2 watersheds But the second watershed, which is very small, does not have a wetland mitigation bank. There's only one wetland mitigation bank that's applicable. And so they directed us to purchase credits from that facility, Prairie. I forget where it's at. It's down south. So anyway, it's $125,000 of credit. When you do the math with all the mitigation that we had to do, it comes out to $143,000. I will tell you that the council action states that there is a check on the register tonight, a voucher to be paid. DNR wants to see that we've purchased this credit by the 20th to continue with our process. That did not make the register, so if the council should desire to approve this, I'll also need you to direct staff to issue a check this week as soon as possible and make that work and authorize that voucher.
I'll speak last if there's any further discussion on this, because I got a number of comments that came into me over the last 3 or 4 days, and they've been kind of summarized here, and I do want to bring them out on record. So if there's anyone else that wishes to speak at this time, I'll speak last.
I'm just kind of curious or do I need to make the motion first before?
No, we're in discussion phase, so go ahead,
So
Alderman.
I'm just want to make sure that I understand exactly. We're just buying credits for the wetlands? Like, how does that sort of work out in that manner?
So obviously the DNR and Corps of Engineers would prefer that we don't touch some plants and so forth. There are plants. This is a long linear stretch. It's actually We Energy's corridor. And they can tell you to mitigate. One option would be to mitigate on site, but one, we don't own the property. And the second thing is there's just no place to mitigate. You know, we don't have a corner someplace that we can mitigate that. So it's a program set in place when you're in that situation that you can actually buy credits from an established wetland banking system. So it takes several years to actually set these up, and it's complex. We've actually looked at doing this in Franklin before, and it's quite a process. So there is one in Pleasant Prairie that they've established, and so anytime someone within the basin has wetland mitigation that they need to compensate for, then they send us here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A few points here, Mr. City Engineer, and again, trying to muddle through some of these questions. So, what's the fiscal impact on the city? What's the city actually coming out with? What's it costing taxpayers to have this trail go through?
The complete budget, that's been covered before. I guess I'd have to look and get that total for you, but we got a $900,000 grant, and then I'd have to add up the grave invoices for the design, and then it's $143,000. So it's, without going back and looking at the records, it's probably maybe 300 more or less. I can provide that for you in detail later.
So the fiscal impact on the city taxpayers would be roughly $300,000.
Yeah, please don't hold me to that, but I will research that and find out. So
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I will research that and find out for you.
Now, is there, the application process started with the state for the grant?
So we actually made applications for several grants. This is a CMAQ grant, Construction Mitigation Air Quality Grant. So it's a highly desirable trail project grant. It covers 90% of the project cost.
And what type of obligation did the city have to come forth, not monetarily, but what do we have to do as far as upkeep, as far as, what obligations do we have as far as, is it, I guess I talked to you in the, I'm saying these things, I don't know the
Yeah,
answer.
so if you're familiar with the bike trail that goes through St. Martin's, very similar situation.
So it's a paved trail.
We'll have a lease with We Energies because it's their property, but it's up to us to maintain it. We plow them, but it's the very last thing that gets done in the wintertime. So
And it is a black-topped trail.
correct.
Okay. And there's also, what was that, 2 years ago when the last clearing went through, or a year and a half ago. And now will that be done on an annual basis? Will that be done, I mean, because there
As
was
needed.
a lot of neighbors that were very surprised, shocked, angered, enraged that this greenery and shrubbery was now gone, even though it was a We Energies trail, We Energies property, or We Energies right of way.
We'll go through and trim as needed. I can't promise it'll happen every year, but as
Okay.
needed.
So one of the concerns, many concerns are, okay, the speed of the bicyclists and what type of speed awareness or what type of measures will be taken to try to ensure some visibility and safety of the residents that live along 116th that will have to cross over this trail to enter and exit their property.
So I would suggest to you it'd be very similar as it is now. People trying to get out of their driveway with the bicycles on the street. There could be a few more bicycles on the trail. We had anticipating putting some signage up, not at every driveway, but saying that there will be some yield signs or yield to, I forget how we worded it, but I think yield to driveways or something like that.
Okay,
So
thank you. If We Energies decides the city is no longer permitted to use the land on which we are entering a licensing agreement, we must restore the land to its condition before our use. Do we have money budgeted for this?
we do not.
So we don't have money budgeted for it. What, is there anything that would protect the city if We Energies we stick all this time, money, and effort into this, now it says we can't use it?
So we had this discussion when we signed the original lease agreement, and later tonight we'll be talking about an extension to that lease agreement, or modification, I should say. We Energies tells us that they cross the state, they do this in several communities, and they have never once asked someone to vacate the pathway.
Okay, I'm a few more to keep going here. So now, this trail, and I'm a big proponent of connectivity, could you just kind of touch a little bit on where this trail will be connected to?
Sure. So this will connect, will go down to basically follows the old rail line and goes down to the county line. And Muskego has told us that they will connect where we end our trail over to where the trail starts at South North Cape, and that will take you, can't remember the name of the town, but it goes all the way down the road, several miles.
And does this have any impact or any connection to the new subdivision being built?
It will go through a parcel that was unusable for any other homes. We talked last year about possibly making this a trailhead, but we decided not to do that, but it will go through that parcel right there. It will cross Ryan Road, so it'll snip that corner and also snip the corner on the other side of the condos that are going in.
So, okay, so you're on 116th, and you're gonna hit Ryan Meadows, that new subdivision where there's supposed to be about 120 homes.
Correct.
That's the goal, is to have that connection from that brand new subdivision all the way down, all the way around. This is it's a big connected looping trail, which
Correct.
is a big deal. And I'm giving these lead-in questions
Yeah.
because I want you to explain them a little bit, because
And if you go, it's very rare when I drive down 116th Street not see a bicyclist. And so if you're familiar with the construction of 116th Street Trail, or 116th Street, there is no shoulders. It's a very skinny road and quite dangerous, but a lot of bicyclists use that, and pedestrians.
what about wetland mitigation? Do we need to have an NRSC or anything like that?
This is a trail, so it's an essential project, and we've already cleared it through planning many months ago.
So that's been cleared, okay. The NRPP mitigation plan is a self-imposed hardship. Do we have an exception for this, or will we have to mitigate that?
So that process for roads and utilities, we do have an easier process to go through. We're not quite as hard for those kinds of facilities that must go through. On the other hand, we typically don't go to Corps of Engineers and DNR and have to do this kind of mitigation. So in some respects, it's easier. Some respects, it's tougher.
And I don't know if you know this offhand, but is the trail, the expense of the trail, for the designing of it, was that $1.4 million? Why is it a number popping out there?
The
Could
design
that
of
be
the trail,
accurate?
So 1.4 might be the total cost of
But I
everything.
figured that, I'm just wondering why this would
So
be.
900,000, so maybe total cost of city would be about 500, but then 62% of that would be impact
Impact
fees.
fees.
Yep.
So that was my next question, is could you just say for a little bit of a discussion on what the park impact fee amount we're looking at using to apply to this trail?
So assuming it's 500,000 on the city's portion, so 500,000 times 0.62 is 300,000 would be park impact fees-ish.
That sound right?
Again, I'm throwing numbers off the top of my head.
No, I know, Aaron, I'm not looking to put you on the spot here, but I just want to get that out there because there were questions about park impact fees. And I understand that, trails, you get to benefit the most by building a trail for park impact fees is 0.67 opposed to buying new parkland, so on and so forth.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion from anyone else at this point?
I'd like to make a motion personally to table until we have further information provided. There seems to be a lot of questions on this project.
Well, he answered the ones I had. Unless anyone else has any more questions, I think they were answered pretty well.
If I don't have a second, that's fine.
What was the timeline again on this? You said there was pretty aggressive,
So,
something had to be in by the 20th?
yeah, so the 20th, the DNR would like to see that we've allocated our wetland credits by the 20th to continue with the permitting process. The overall project has been delayed from what was previously discussed. Actually, I talked about it a few meetings ago, but early in the project, we anticipate actually going to construction this fall. We Energies is one reason. They want to change some customers from one transformer over to another transformer. So they need to do some work next spring. So we're trying to delay this to allow them to do their work. We don't want to build a trail, then have them, tear it up right away. So.
I stand by my motion to table until we have more information. If I don't have a second to support, that's fine. but
That's,
that's-
we have a motion to table. Is there a second to table this? Is there a timeline on this? Table till we have the
Even the next
questions answered?
meeting, if that would give you enough time.
No, August 20th.
So aside from the finances, what other questions do you feel were not answered?
Call the question.
Alderman Barber?
Call the question.
There's no second, yes, sir.
If we can't get a second, I guess I will retract tabling it, but in the future, instead of being on some of these short deadlines, I'd like to have a little bit more time so things don't come up last minute with questions and so forth, to allow fair time for you as well, Gwen.
Well,
So all around.
if you want to make the motion to table till next meeting and,
I don't have a second.
no, she didn't put a timeline on it, Counselor. She said just to table it. But thank you.
I suggested to table it until the next meeting, but if I don't have support in a second, I'm not sure what can be done.
Nothing is, if there's okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second to Alderman Eichmann's motion? There's no second. Going back to the original motion, is there original motion on item G8?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Excuse me.
Any further discussion at
Excuse
this
me.
time?
Excuse me.
Yes.
So when you say move to approve, do you also mean with the authority for staff to continue to write the check this week?
Correct.
Thank you.
That was my understanding.
So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, actually, Madam Clerk, please take a roll.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
No.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day. Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no. Motion carries. G9, a resolution to replace Resolution 022-7828 to enter license agreement with Wisconsin Electric Power Company to use their property for a linear park from South 116th Street / West Mayor's Drive to municipal boundary with Muskego. Mr. City Engineer.
So ironically, these are some of the things that we asked Clean Energies for back when we did the original license agreement. But DOT would like a few things changed, and they're willing to make those for DOT. So I'm I'm very grateful to We Energy. So they're changing the term from 5 years to 20 years. And the second issue is termination. Instead of having a 90 days notice, the 180 days notice. So they're asking really to change those two things, and the license agreement is as we've already approved. It's actually beneficial for us.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on this? Anybody have anything?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G10, concept review for a land division and light industrial flex space development located at approximately 10885 South 27th Street. Tax key numbers 978-9997-000, 978-9998-000, and 978-9999-001. Mark Norland, Likewise Partners LLC applicant. Madam Director of Planning. Uh-oh, is that working?
Still fighting me. Hello. We're good. Do we have the applicant here tonight from Likewise? We do. Would you like to come up and speak on behalf of your project?
Yes, could you please come up, sir, if you like? We have an extra chair.
Sure. We'd love to hear from you and have you at least talk a little bit about your project, and then I'll follow up with some staff comments.
Certainly, certainly. My name is Mark Nordland with Likewise Partners. My partner Steve Buss is back, as well as Werner Brisky with PID Architects, who's helping us with the project. Matt Carey with Pinnacle Engineering is also in supporting role here, but more of our discussion today, I think, revolves around design. We are a Minneapolis-based industrial developer. We're very active in Wisconsin. It's the bulk of our work is in Wisconsin. We've got about 1.5 million square feet of industrial space that we either own or are in the process of developing right now in Wisconsin, including a building that we own in the Franklin Corporate Park, and look forward to trying to do some additional development here. The site that we are working on is about 100 acres in total that's owned by the landowners, but we're here to talk tonight about 40 acres, just a little more than 40 acres that we would build on which we would build two high-value office warehouse buildings. There's an additional 20 acres that's a current woodland that would remain woods and would be dedicated to that purpose in perpetuity as part of our approvals. So we have just a little over 600,000 square feet between the two buildings. We understand that for this use within the PDD Gateway District, we need a special use permit, and we have been working through that process. It would be similar to the process that the Saputo cheese facility went through. It's in the similar Gateway District as well. And we know that we need to make the building look beautiful in order to get those approvals and some of the waivers that would apply differently to this building than others. We presented this back in December for concept review. Some of you are here. There's definitely some new faces on the council as well. So as we've been working since then, we've worked through some access issues. There's access off of 27th Street that we've coordinated between WSDOT and the City of Franklin's Transportation Department. Initially, we were proposing to have full access off of 27th Street based on a previous WSDOT plan. They've now changed how they'd like the spacing to work there, and we've worked with them to accommodate that. There's a couple of things that do we have the site plan maybe?
We do. We can pull that up for you.
And we can talk in more detail as we dive in. But there's a couple of things that affect the property. Obviously, it's bordered on the east by 27th Street. You see there the two buildings that we're proposing and a road that runs east-west between them. That access off of 27th Street, we had previously proposed to be full access. WSDOT didn't like that spacing as it relates to where County Line comes in and Elm Road to the north. And so we've worked on having that be a right-in, right-out street, and then have a north-south street that would go between County Line Road and Elm Road on the west side of the project. That also would then help to serve Lot 3, which would be a future development phase that we would hope to do with this same landowner here after we're complete with these two buildings. The initial build-out, though, would have the right-in, right-out off of 27th Street, and then would have the leg that goes down from the new road down to the south, the county line, and then we would dedicate right-of-way going to the north, and the city has been in discussions with the landowner there to gain right-of-way all the way up to Elm. That would be probably constructed as that area develops up there. And in the interim, there's plenty of plenty of access coming off of County Line to get out of the site and back up to the freeway. So since we were last here, we've been working on that access. We've been working on a wetland delineation that is near complete and doing quite a bit of civil work, and then also trying to address primarily what we heard last time were design issues with the property or with the building, and trying to make it look and feel as much like an office building as possible. One comment that came through some staff reports was about realigning the buildings and potentially having them run north-south so that they fronted onto 27th Street. It's for buildings like this, that's not possible on this site. There's an ATC power line that runs east-west through the site that needs to run. It could be relocated a little bit for about $1.8 million. It could be moved, but it can't be moved off of the site, and so it still needs to go east-west and still would have a difficult time getting the buildings to lay out that way. In addition, the site drops about 30 feet from the north to the, at the far south of the overall property is where the Root River is down there, and there's significant grade change. And so to get any kind of a building that has a flat floor, that it would take, a 30-foot tall retaining wall to make that work, or some sort of you could probably do it with less than that, but 20 or so foot tall retaining wall to square up the site. So that was not possible, but what we did change is, like I said, the access, and then we've worked on design quite a bit. We're trying to, take the feedback that we heard last time about the 27th Street frontage being important, and we did more to enhance those frontages and to make sure that they had more glazing and different materials on them, and certainly had as much as any other component of the building. We've got primary front corners at those two corners that are on the new road that we would propose to build, that have significant two-story glazing and primary entrances for the buildings. And we've worked quite a bit just with the overall facade and the change of colors and some relief in the elevations. Werner will come up in a bit and can talk a little bit more about what we did specifically with the design. The other changes, we've got some significant tenant interest in the buildings. We've got one tenant that we've got a proposal out to that would like to take an entire building. We're not the only one that's proposing that, but we are one of just a couple that is in the running for that tenant, which would be fantastic to help kick off the project, and I think to help kind of reiterate the need for this type of space here, if we can make it work within the city of Franklin. And we've got a second prospective tenant that's interested, not as far along as the first, but that would be a full building user potentially. Although we'd like the ability to build these buildings on spec, which is how most industrial product is built, so that you get the buildings up and then you can fill them with one or more tenants as time goes on. So if we were able to get the first tenant, we would still like to build that second building. Werner, would you like to come up and maybe talk to the design elements that we've changed on the exterior of the building?
Yeah, there's a couple
Werner
slides
Bris-
down.
You want to do
There
your?
we go. So I've got all
Okay.
the elevations on there for you.
All right, do you want to maybe jump to the rendering,
Um,
if you have that?
I think that's all we had on there. I apologize.
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Certainly, Werner Brisky, Partners in Design Architects, 652nd Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you can go back to the elevations then, we'll work from that. I think the rendering shows it better, and I think you probably have this in your packet, I would hope. Okay. What we try to do is just create a little more articulation, or a good deal more articulation in terms of the change in both finish, in color, in texture, more relief to the building, more glazing both on the first floor and the second floor, added additional architectural elements to really emphasize the primary corner entrances, as well as adding additional elements at the secondary entrances. There's two primary corner entrances and then two secondary entrances along the length of the building. The corners now consist of precast, an articulated precast with form liner in a bold color. We've got an ACM metal panel brow that provides additional relief and additional shadow lines. We've added additional metal brows, as you can see in the center of the lower half there across that brown section, and also added sunshades at the second floor windows around the entrances, just bringing a good deal more articulation for both the pedestrian scale, the drive-by scale. I think we're looking at the long elevation, which will face south. Did you have a
If you go
copy
down the
of
next one, I believe I have the
There
one
we go.
facing 27th
So,
for you.
yeah, this is facing 27th Street. Again, focused on putting a good amount of articulation on that wall. While not all of the openings that you're seeing or the darker elements are windows, we're implying windows to continue that rhythm, to bring that impression. It is not at all practical with the typical users for these buildings to have a great deal of glazing in them. So we're providing it where we think it can be functional, where we think it can be used. Those openings, however, those faux openings would be designed to be available to be openings and be saw cut as full windows in the event that a larger office user would occupy the building. And again, here to answer any questions along with the developers.
Mr. Ofer.
Those faux openings facing 27th, those aren't the size of like a dock door, are they?
No, there would be no docking on that side.
But I mean, it's not the size, it wouldn't give the impression from a distance that that's what it was.
I certainly don't think so. They don't go to the ground. They're dark. Dock openings are typically white doors. I can see your point. There's
But
just
it's hard from the picture.
Yeah, I understand. There's an access lane in front of it. There's no pavement in front of it. There's not even a parking expanse there. So it will be sitting on landscaping and then with just a fire access lane around the
Thank you.
end of the building.
Mr. Barber.
One of my concerns was the presentation and the aesthetics, and I think you've done a very good job
Thank you.
with incorporating some very nice features into it that I'm pleased to see.
Great, thank you.
Madam Planning Director?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'll go into just staff recommendations, which was covered through the staff report. But essentially, just to start with a little background, this is in PDD 39, which was essentially designed for headquarters, to feature headquarters. It's right off of I-94. So as you're driving north and south on I-94, this is basically your first vision of Franklin. So I want everybody to keep that in mind, and if Karen would be kind enough to advance the slide one more. That's the site that you would be seeing from the freeway. So the news is important too, Karen, I understand.
You better hope not. There we
No
go.
worries.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so just, I want everybody to help visualize exactly what you're going to see. So what they have on that east elevation, that's going to be visible, and that is going to be the first thing everybody sees from Franklin. So it's really up to Common Council. Is that the vision that you want to see for Franklin? Is there other opportunities to make this look more headquarters-like with more glazing, whatnot? I'd leave that up into your hands. But staff did have a little concern with, this is the first thing that we're going to see when we enter Franklin and set that perception. This is office light industrial development, so just to let everybody know, this requires a special use approval. And we also need special use approval for overnight parking, which is pretty standard for these manufacturing centers. We do have a lot of environmental concerns on here, but we will be addressing those as they move forward into the building site plan. Sounds like they have a pretty good handle on what's to come. We just don't know if that's going to change any of the other additional approvals they need until we see a final plan. Other than that, though, staff in general was pretty happy to see some of the progression that we've seen since the December 20th concept
So,
review.
Madam Planning Manager, so you are pretty supportive at this point of where we're going, the direction we're going through?
Yeah, I think the only concern staff really has still is that view from I-94 and 27th Street.
Fair enough. Mr. Olfer?
Mentioned in here, development would require a significant number of waivers for design and materials. Can you speak to that a little bit? It's on your page 3.
I apologize, I don't have the list in front of me, but I do know that my staff does, and I'd be happy to supply that to you. Unfortunately, another staff member helped me with this, so
We're talking more than 6, or
I believe it's 4. Yeah,
I'd be interested in the scope of what that is. Thank you.
absolutely.
Anyone else at this time? Alderwoman Day.
Thank you for the presentation. I have just 2 quick questions. One, and this might go towards one of the items that Alderman Holtfer was, and the planning manager were referring to. I'm on, I don't actually know what page it is in our packet, but it's item 3B under the special use standards and regulations section. So item 3B, it talks about central areas and features. These are some of the design standards for PDD 39. And specifically in here, the PDD calls for central areas or features such as patio seating area, pedestrian plaza with benches, outdoor playground area, et cetera. In here, I did not see any of that, and I apologize if you mentioned it in your presentation. I didn't see it there as well. Is that something you're planning to incorporate at all in any of this?
Yeah, so that's one of the items that they were speaking of where we would require a waiver, similar to what Saputo did with their other building. It's just not applicable to this type of a building.
Correct.
To have a playground or a plaza in front of it.
Okay. And then my second question is on our staff report, page 3, under general comments. When we're talking about some of the new roads that you're going to cut in, specifically the road that's going to cut in from 27th Street, do you anticipate there needing to be a controlled intersection there, meaning a traffic signal? Just concerned with, the pattern and flow of traffic on 27th Street right now with the traffic signals that already exist. If we need to put another one in there, it would be a little bit.
Yeah, that's part of the back and forth we've had with WisDOT in the city on that, and that's why it's a right in, right out. So
Okay.
vehicles coming in can take a right turn in, and they can also take a right turn out, although I don't know that many would, because most vehicles wouldn't be heading further south on that road, so they will
So
come
predominantly coming
down
in
to
from
County
the other
line,
road
back up,
off
yeah.
of Elm. Okay.
That's
County
part
Line
of what
Road.
they want to do, but they only wanted there to be one full curb cut between Elm and County Line.
Uh-huh.
They want that to be further north.
Okay.
And so that's why we got it right in, right out.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else at this point? Madam Planning Manager, anything else to add to this at this point?
No, I do not, thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. There's no action requested, no action to be taken on this item.
We appreciate your feedback and we'll be back with a full application.
Thank you very much. As discussed earlier, there is no concept review under G11. Moving on to G12.
Mayor?
Oh,
May I just ask for further clarification on that? I know there might be some people here who are waiting for that particular item. Is there a time frame when it might come back to council for a presentation?
I don't have the particulars on that. I think it's hopefully forthcoming, perhaps next meeting. Is there more, Mr. City Attorney?
Well, it won't be a concept review, but I think if the council so desires, the developer may wish to present during the council meeting item regarding the tax incremental district development agreement before or after the common council goes into closed session.
That was what we were going to go to, and I think that's what makes the most sense. I just had to go over 11 and do that, and then was going to invite them to come up during that, that time. Okay, on G12, list of donations for January to June 2023. Madam Finance Director, what do you have on this? Oh, boy. Complete chaos.
Thank you. I don't have anything other than it looks like this is something that has been done previously. Donations have been accepted on a quarterly basis, and it hasn't been done since 2021. So I just wanted to get us as caught up as possible. So I have these here from January to June, and I will bring the next section in October.
Motion to acknowledge and accept, and thank you for
Second.
this information.
We've got first and Mr. Barber, second Alderwoman Eichman. Any further discussion?
I think it's important.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Sorry, I just wanted to add a quick note that I think it's important that we, as a city, thank and appreciate all of the sponsors on here. You know, some very generous donations and so forth. So I personally, at least speak for myself, thank you to the extensive list of people that are on here.
Yeah, and I will say, I know that even though this is a public acknowledgement, that we are working on making sure that a letter goes out to every donor that sends something in going forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And one of the things that you mentioned quickly when we were having the transition with the microphone is that this had not been done since 2021.
Correct.
So thank you for uncovering that, because this should have been done annually, not biannually. So well done on that part. So we had a first and a second on this. And so Mr. Barber, any more on this? First and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. MG 13, a resolution to supersede a state municipal financial agreement for a Wisconsin Department of Transportation project on South Lovers Lane / West Ryan Road, US Highway 45 / State Highway 100, from South 60th Street to West St. Martin's Road, and increase the amount to $1,482,000 and $100. Mr. City Engineer?
So, as you know, we are asking WisDOT to put a 10-foot pathway along pretty much all of State Trunk Highway 100. So eventually you'll be able to go from Hills Corners all the way down to the Root River Trail, and it'll be a nice addition to get people off the road with bicycles and pedestrians. Initially, they had told us that someone gave us an estimate of $672,000 based on, they just took some square footage and so forth and said that's what it would cost. We came back later and said, well, it's actually going to be $1.1 million when they actually got to looking at some curbing, and there is a relatively new state statute that does not allow to condemn for right-of-ways, so they had to do some more creative things to make it more expensive. So the plans have progressed significantly. We are on the hook for whatever we should decide to do here, but the most current estimate, aside from cost of everything has just gone up, the plans have progressed to the fact where they have a much better estimate. It's actually the $1.4 million project. So again, this is 62% can help out park impact fees, which I know the finance department is working to get that updated, and this will help significantly in that effort to spend those dollars. So staff would recommend that it is an expensive trail project, but it's a very nice piece of a project that we should do. So
To keep this in perspective, how long do you believe this trail will be once it's completed? So if people were to get in their head, how long of a trail is this?
this specific trail,
Yeah, the $1.4 million trail.
I would have to measure. So it's basically from the bridge on Ryan Road, and we'll continue all the way to St. Martin's, where St. Martin's cuts off. So I don't know how many miles that would be. That would be a 2.5 mile trail, 3 mile.
I would say it's all at 3 miles, but okay.
Yeah. So
All right, that was a kind of another lead-in question. I just want to get that out there. Any further discussion on this? We have a motion. Oh, Mr. Hofer.
So when they actually go to bid for construction, there's an opportunity it will increase again?
possibly. So the costs are what they are. This is just the best, latest and greatest estimate. I hope they get it bid out soon because cost for everything just seems to be going up a lot higher than it should be.
But if we, to address Alderman Holfer's point, if this was to go up, that would also increase our PEC impact fee contribution to this, which we are in dire need of doing. So that's.
And there would be a cost to the state for any work that's been done on the project thus far.
Yeah, if,
Opt
if,
out.
if by chance you should say, no, enough's enough, we're not going to spend anything more on it. We are, I don't know what the actual cost would be. We have been paying invoices for right-of-way acquisition, but we would actually owe the state for the design efforts that they put into it and the design efforts to take it back out of the project. So I'm not sure what that dollar amount is, but we are on the hook for some, based on our previous SMFA, we are on the hook for that.
Alderwoman Day.
I just have a quick question. I posed this to Glenn a little bit earlier today, and I don't know, Daniel, you might have a little bit more information for it. For the park impact fees that we're thinking about using to assist with this, since the bulk of the project probably wouldn't be done until 2025, if we're squirreling away, for this particular project, are we in danger of any of the park impact fees losing them due to the timeline, or are we okay with that? Glenn thought we were based on other projects we were working on, but I just want to make sure that we're not setting something aside and then end up accidentally losing it because we were holding it for a project that was a little further down the road.
Unfortunately, I can't say right now. My team is working on updating those park impact fees spreadsheets. In briefly looking at them, it looked like we may have been in jeopardy of losing some park impact fees, but after speaking with Glenn about which project was it?
Yeah, so the Southwest Park last year, at least it was reported that kicked the can down to the end of 2024, but that's my memory.
Yes, so we're working on that.
Just want to keep the timeline fresh for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't want to lose them.
It's a priority, big time. Any other further discussion on that? And you're recommending option A, City Attorney, City Engineer?
Correct.
Okay, do we have a motion on that?
So move.
Mr.
Second.
Hofer and Alderwoman Day. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G14, West Elm Road Underground Storage Feasibility Report. Is that Mr. City Engineer?
So we had talked about how to construct Elm Road. We had initially a place to put our stormwater maintenance facility, and that place went away when we relocated the ATC lines. So we've looked at a couple different options. We knew that this was going to be an issue. We had anticipated that we would be able to place this on some parkland owned by the county, and so that was discussed. I forget, in January, I believe, is when that discussion happened. So if you recall, the county had offered a lease of $700,000 that we could put our facility on their property. So we talked about having an alternate method. There is a situation where we have funds earmarked from MMSD for green projects, and they would consider an underground detention facility as a green project. So by looking at that, the summary is shown on your sheet there. So even though it's a more expensive project, 6.3 versus a $5.2 million project, by the time you add in the $700,000 for lease from the county and the deduct for $1.5 million from MMSD that we could use to allocate towards that, there's a small increase in the design fees. It's about $1 million savings to go with the underground facility. Having said, so $1 million is a lot of money. Having said that, I don't like the idea. It's tougher to maintain. We have ponds everywhere else, and we know how to maintain ponds. This would take a lot of extra effort to keep the catch basins clean, because we don't want sediment getting from the catch basins into the underground system. Because if it gets in the underground system, then that's you're talking about confined space and some other issues to keep this clean. So $1 million is a lot of money. If that were the true cost, I would make a recommendation we go with $1 million. However, the obvious thing to look at is that $700,000 lease. So if by chance the county could understand that by us being able to develop this park, it really increases the amount of funds for the county also. If we could get that within $300,000, if you just take that $700,000 out, I would say that's close enough that I would prefer to have, to go on the county land. So that's where we are. This is the study that we authorized Rupert Milky to do. They're about a month early in the reporting, so we try to get this back as quick as we can.
Thank you. Hold on one second, just a quick note. I know when we were approached by the county, Supervisor Taylor came here on January 3rd, that $700,000 upfront, I mean, it was discussed that half of that would be coming back and used in parks and such in the city of Franklin, benefiting the city of Franklin users. So I think that's, you know, I understand it's 700,000, but I believe half of that was supposed to remain in the city of Franklin, if you recall that conversation.
Yeah, that's spelled out on the page 154 of your packet.
So the letter from the supervisor goes into the breakdown from Fitzsimmons and, you know, Grobschmidt, and that's, and this Franklin Savannah. So I just want to make sure that that's, when we're making a decision like this, if it's going to be made tonight, that's a very important piece of this, that money is going to be put back here to Franklin usership, you know, for our own taxpayers to benefit. Alderman Barber.
As I recall, this is a process that was started in January. There was no guarantee that could be given on the 700,000 that this would have to go before the parks or the board itself to come up with a final amount, and they might not accept that. So what does that do to this plan if in fact it comes back requesting more money because they figure their land is worth more than the 700 and things have changed now? So I guess we're already $1 million over, and now if we're going to have to add more money based upon changes that might not happen or could very well happen, given the county board and what it decides. There was no guarantee on it. That's my concern, and that's an added cost to this whole project if that does come.
So,
Go ahead.
so that is correct. He did, I believe Supervisor did mention that he hasn't cleared that with the rest of the folks that make the decisions, but all I can go on is what's proposed in the letter. So that would be a discussion, and if it's different, I suppose we should come back and discuss that.
And I agree with you on that point, because that's, I think it's much simpler and cheaper to go with the, you know, traditional opposed to the underground. And is, and, you know, really focusing on what the benefits are coming back to the userships and the taxpayers here in Franklin for that project.
So, no, correction. It's actually cheaper to go with the underground, but if we can get close enough with reducing that 700,000, that's.
But I'm looking at the initial construction costs. If you're more confident in looking for I'm looking for your professional engineering opinion on this, that's what we're looking for. You know, I understand usership and everything else, but if it's going to be an easier and cheaper way to go, then that's.
So yeah, if money weren't an object, I would definitely want to put a pond out there. But it's $1 million savings. That 1.5 from MMSD is fairly solid.
Okay,
So
it is. That was my next question, but okay. Mr. Barbie, you still have the floor?
I would like to see a more fixed number come up before we would decide this decision, because in fact, if they try to double that, you're going to increase it by another 700. I'm not too solid or too confident of the 700,000. So I'm saying, why would we act on this without knowing what that final figure is going to be?
I have a comment after Alderwoman Day and then Alderman Holfer.
So I spoke with Supervisor Taylor a little bit today about this item, with similar concerns as Alderman Barber about the $700,000. I do seem to remember an issue with the county board and Waukesha when it came to some water issues and what Waukesha thought they were getting for a price, and it was significantly more than that at the end. So I do have some concerns that at the end of the day, this might not be the number that, well, I trust Supervisor Taylor, he lives here, this is his district, he knows the area. I don't know that he can come up with the votes, and I don't know that the county board would stick with the 700,000. So that's my reservation on that side of it. On the other side, with the underground storage alternative, the part that I'm getting stuck on isn't the maintenance piece of it, but the inconvenience and kind of the delay of having to tear up and redo utility lines and whatnot, and what that type of delay does to development that has already occurred there and future development. So I have pause with the underground storage as well, disrupting. So my question to the city engineer that I didn't ask yet is, what kind of time frame are we looking on this? If we can perhaps bring the county supervisor back to ask a few more questions, or, you know, where are we with having to make a decision about when we need to get this done?
So there is no pressing issue right now to make a decision. Having said that, we are probably one phone call away from John Ricketts saying, hey, we've got this thing, we got to get this going. And we have had some of the companies, you know, the Vanguard building and so forth, this is very important to the survivability of that happening. So I would ideally like to start construction next year. This can wait another meeting or two. I would definitely suggest that someone from the city make contact with Supervisor Taylor and start negotiations.
Yeah, just because it's been 8 months since he's here, I want to see if he can, you know, garner up a little bit more support or information from other board members. I don't know how many turned over in their last election since January, that there might be some changes of opinion and whatnot. I love that we would get some of this money back potentially. Again, nervous about that in past dealings with the county, but hopeful that we would get some return on that investment. So I would, if we have the ability to table it, I would like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting and see if we can get County Supervisor Taylor to come in and see if we can get a little bit more information.
I like
I'll
that.
second that.
Mr. Hofer,
Not to put too fine a point on it, but my understanding was we were dealing with a proposal, not an official offer. So I wouldn't want to make a decision until we had an official approved offer from the county that we could say yes or no to, rather than let's just start negotiating, and then once we're in it, if things keep escalating, we go, well, now we're in it, now we got to continue. I'd rather have, this is what the county's willing to do, and we either say yes or no, or negotiate after that point.
I agree. So the motion is to table till next meeting and invite Supervisor Taylor here for some clarification and hopefully some finality. Mr. Barber.
Once we get, if we say we want to go, how long a process is that going to be for the county to get approval before we can approve this? I mean, they have to go through a process. Have they started any kind of work on getting this thing through, or is there any acceptance of this in any way at this point with the county moving forward? Does all that have to fall into place before we'll ever know anything?
So I have not talked to Supervisor Taylor regarding this issue, so I can't answer that question.
But next meeting, I'm sure we could get all those questions answered, is my opinion. So we got a first, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G15, a resolution authorizing the installation of a fence within the 20-foot drainage easement upon Lot 6, Woodbury Estates, being a subdivision in the southwest 1/4 of the southwest 1/4 of Section 10, Township 5 North, Range 21 East, in the city of Franklin, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin. 7247 West Woodbury Drive. Tax.
Second.
The first and a second, I was going to finish David Hensley applicant. Not sure if the applicant's here. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G16, a resolution for R.A. Smith, Inc. to provide design services at Water Tower Park, 8120 South Lovers Lane, tax key number 801-9986, 000 for $42,050. Mr. City Engineer.
This was a project that we were ready to start last year. but we delayed because of the water tower process. So it looks like the water tower is going to be bid out in the next month or two. We'd like to go ahead and start doing the design. It's going to take about 2 years to build the water tower, and then when the water tower is done, the idea is that the park would not only be designed but built and ready for visitors. So
And touch on the park impact fees, please.
this is not as high as a trail project.
Right, it's on our fiscal note, I'm sorry.
47%.
Shouldn't have teed you up like that.
47% is actually reimbursed by the park impact fees. So I've got this project and a few other projects. I told the finance director if, should we need to, I can proceed with some projects that were ready to go last year that didn't go. So
Move to authorize.
We have a first, we have a second.
Second.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Question.
Oh, we have a question. Mr. Olfer, you got the floor.
So if we have a 2-hour construction process and bidding isn't done.
2
yet-
year.
2-year, I'm sorry.
It was
Thank
2
you.
hours.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
Can we
we
get
should
their
let.
first name on the company in 2 hours?
2 hours plus the bidding process. And the last time the bids came in too high. Do we need to do this right now? Or maybe in
We did enough things with the water tower project, so I took out the water main that goes south. So based on the bids that came in, we have a pretty good number. We have to assume some escalation, but it was a good tight bidding process last year. So I feel fairly confident about that. We are working through the process to get the funding and so forth, everything in place. So I feel fairly confident that we'll go through this time.
just my concern would just be that they get into it and, well, now we have to revise this and that, and then we go back and here's an extra for them for the revisions they had to make.
So, yeah, so I will tell you that R.A. Smith is working with our water tower designer to get the CAD drawings. So they'll take their drawing and it'll overlay each other. Reason why I do like to have a couple years, because there's a lot of wetland improvements. And I've been part of so many projects where everyone shows up to look at the wetland plants and, ooh, is that it? Because it takes a good year or 2 years for those plants to get established.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The much anticipated
Oh, God.
and wait, item G17, the July 2023 monthly financial report. Our finance director.
I put a little spiel together, so bear with me. Okay, so I wanted to start off by saying that the last 2 months have been challenging but rewarding. I have continued to gain a wealth of knowledge on a daily basis while sitting in this role. On my first day, I walked into what I would call a mountain of papers and documents. As some of you may know, I'm being mentored on a weekly basis by my predecessor, Paul Rotzenberg, and I joked with him that while going through the enormous piles of paper in my office, I came across audit documents that were older than me. I still have them handy, however, because he stated that I never know when I might need to reference them. So now I transitioned to 2 months ahead, and I've been avidly working hard at learning the ropes of the finances within the city of Franklin. I have come across some challenges that have required additional work from myself and my staff. So I'll name a couple of them. One, the city of Franklin has not had a finance committee meeting since October of 2022. Number two, a finance packet for the Common Council hasn't been submitted to you guys since the July of 22. And the Board of Water Commissioners haven't seen a financial report since October of 21 until today. Transparency is important to me, and that is why my team has been working extremely hard on getting spreadsheets and financial data updated so that I may present accurate and timely information to all of you. That is one thing. Another thing I want to mention is that the City of Franklin's financial audit was performed by Clifton Larson Allen, and they issued the annual comprehensive financial report on July 31st. The financial report will be presented to the Finance Committee on August 22nd, and then it will come back to the Common Council on September 5th. Lastly, I want to reiterate that my team has been working tremendously hard since June to finalize the financial report, begin and work through the audit process, collect the final payments for the last property tax settlement, all while maintaining their day-to-day tasks. It has and is going to continue to take time to update all of this information that hasn't been updated since October of 21, refine and streamline processes, and get through the 2024 budget. if I was a betting woman, I'd say I walked in with a 3 and an 8 non-suited hand, but we're working hard to get it a pair of jacks. With that being said, I've only provided you guys the general fund summary from January to July. July is not finalized in our accounting system yet, but I wanted to provide to you at least the most updated information that I could get. Debt service I provided you as well. That is pretty flat year over year. We haven't had any debt service payments other than the loans and bonds that we have since 2021. We are obtaining a $6.3 million loan with Ellers is working with me right now on getting that done for capital projects that was budgeted for 2023. It hadn't been done prior to my arrival, so we're working on getting that done and possibly doing the water tower borrow at the same time to save financial costs. The general fund summary is in here with your revenues and expenditures. We have a $1.8 million deficit in property taxes, and that's just due to the incoming payments of the property taxes that hadn't been issued, and a lot of them were coming in August as well. The main thing to look at is your investment income. That being said, investment income is going to be pretty high in the rest of 23 and into 24, so that's a new revenue source to look at. Obviously, rates of return change monthly, weekly, daily. So we're doing what we can to make sure that all of the revenue is input for investments. We are $500,000 under in expenditures. So that brings our total fund balance at about $16 million year to date, which is about double what our budget says we will be, but we still have the rest of the year to go. So
I'll start. So excellent job. I know there's a lot, and I would like to publicly acknowledge Mr. Paul Rotzenberg, who was the retired financial director of finance and Franklin resident, for his willingness to come back and be a consultant to the city that he loves and he worked for many years, and an exceptional teacher and mentor to Director Brown and her staff to continue that effort, because this is a very fluid and moving document which has a lot of moving parts and a lot of changes. So with that said, open the floor up to any direct questions, because I'm sure there's a few. Mr. Holfer.
Thanks for the report. On the 507,000 underspent, portion of that is open positions.
correct.
What, if we were at full employment, what kind of an impact would that have on that number? Roughly, I mean, I don't expect.
Probably zero.
Yeah, I mean, it would keep everything flat then, and you would see like a $500 increase or $500,000.
Mr. Barber?
I appreciate the transition and the work you've done on getting up to speed with all of this. Just a point of order, is there some language in the ordinance that formed the Finance Committee as to a minimum number of meetings that they have to have? Some of them require at least a minimum of one a month. Is there anything for the future that this committee should be meeting to discuss items facing the city?
I'd like to touch on that first. We've had problems with quorum, and that's the first part with this. And now coming on the 22nd is our first meeting in a long time. I'll be attending it. I know Madam Director of Administration will be there. So that it's like we're getting we just recently had a new appointee. So this, hopefully now we are on track and to get this going with Chairman Kichi, and he's been aware of what's going on with the new transition. So there's a lot of moving parts to keeping that moving forward, however, we appear that we are back on track. So go ahead.
That I would have directed that. Sorry.
Understand that, and I would like to just reemphasize that I'd like to see that committee meeting. to discuss.
Right, and I was gonna direct that to the city attorney.
Work with me.
Thank you.
Let's get it on track.
Alderman Day?
No, I'm good.
You had the look in your eye? No? Anyone else with anything? Is there a motion to, anything more, Madam Director?
Nope.
Alderman Craig.
Just out of curiosity, how aggressive is our investment portfolio? Is it something that is very much of where we're looking long-term investments, or is it much more of a shorter-term sort of, like, or is it
It's a combination.
like a nice
It's a combination right now.
Is there a motion to receive and place on file?
So, second.
Hopfer and Barber. Any further discussion? See none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, so G18, what we'll do is we'll knock these out and then we'll go into finishing up licenses and everything else. We'll just continue this. Motion, let's see here, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a tax incremental district number 9, creation thereof and process development agreement between the city of Franklin and Karma Laboratories, Inc., developer, 225,000 square foot corporate headquarters, building at the northeast corner of West Ryan Road and South 76th Street. The common council manager into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985, sub 1, sub E, to deliberate upon a potential tax incremental district number 9, development agreement between the city of Franklin and Karma Laboratories, Inc., developer, 225,000 square foot corporate headquarters, building at northeast corner of West Ryan Road and South 76th Street, the negotiation of agreement terms, and the investing of public funds in relation thereto for competitive and bargaining reasons, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as deemed appropriate.
Motion.
Mr. City Attorney?
As I stated earlier, if there's an interest for presentation, question and answers by the developer, up to the council if there is, could do it now. If you want questions before entering closed, or questions arise during the closed session, you may prefer to do it after. So I just thought I'd mention that.
I wouldn't mind, my 2 cents is if the developers, since they're here, would answer questions prior to us going into closed. And then if we have more, since they're here, maybe they can answer if we have any more. Is that, could you please, Alex, are you the, actually come up to the table, please. It's more, you know, and if anyone else from Karma wishes to venture, what now? Oh, well put.
Mayor, I'm going to break for a moment.
Okay. Is that on?
It is on, yes.
Okay, welcome. Would you please state your name and address for
Thank you.
record?
My name is Alex Scheller, and I live at North 17 West 26899 East Fieldhack Drive in Pewaukee, Wisconsin.
Thank you. So what I'd like to start, if you would like to steer the ship here,
Get there.
and once we get there, I'll stall for a minute.
We're
No,
there.
We're there. No stalling needed. So then you've got the floor.
Great, thank you very much. So thank you, Common Council of the City of Franklin. I am Alex Scheller. I'm representing Karma Labs. I have 3 brief slides for you, maybe 5 minutes of presentation information that I'd like to share about our project and about our company. I did say Karma Labs, but you know us best as the makers of Carmex branded lip balm product. This is indeed the product in my hand. We are number 3 in the US market from a market share standpoint, right behind Burt's Bees and Chapstick. And for those of you that don't follow the lip care market all that closely, number 3 is actually kind of a big deal. Our product is sold in retailers throughout the US and in 65 countries throughout the world. And our packaging proudly reads not only crafted in Wisconsin, but also Franklin, Wisconsin. During the decade that we know as the Great Depression in 1937, our founder, Alfred Welbing, started the company in southeastern Wisconsin from the kitchen in his home. and sold Carmex out of the trunk of his car. And we've had the pleasure of being part of the Franklin community since 1970. Our corporate values are family accountability, customer and trust, and you can read more about our company at mycarmex.com. There are several key aspects to the family value that I'd like to highlight. We will support our family and their well-being, we will support our employees and their well-being. We've been certified a great place to work 4 years in a row and top workplaces by the Journal Sentinel. One of the reasons for our new world headquarters is for the sake of our employees, to provide a modern, flexible, efficient environment for ongoing collaboration and teamwork. And the second aspect of the family value is we will be engaged in our broader community. That's you, City of Franklin. It's important for us to give back, to volunteer, to participate, to share. We're a founding member of the Franklin Business Park Consortium. That's an entity that's centered around employee development, business collaboration, and community partnerships. And the list of other examples is long. I only have a few minutes. So we are indeed proposing a 30,000 square foot corporate office and 195,000 square feet of warehousing and light manufacturing on a 42-acre parcel that we own. With this facility, it's our objective to create flexibility and support for the future. And we're planning to consolidate all of our people, processes, machines, equipment, materials from 4 facilities into 1. And the last bullet point on this particular slide, a special thank you to the City of Franklin and the Common Council and staff for supporting economic development in the city and for the work that is performed with us to date. The next slide is a bit more technical. This one is regarding our site plan. We do indeed own the 42 acres. We have Ryan Road to the south and 76th Street to the west. You can see our facility to the top of that parcel. We were attracted to this site in particular because it has significantly higher elevations to the north and then slopes southward. And that gives us an opportunity really to present impressive views to Ryan Road. The site is currently zoned community business district and multiple family residence. And at the recommendation of city staff, we intend to split that into 2 parcels, 2 commercial lots actually along Ryan Road, and then rezone the balance M1 for manufacturing. So let's talk a bit about the neighborhood and the neighbors that are adjoining this particular site. We have the Croatian Park to the north. We have what I believe is now known as the Community Reintegration Center to the east. We have vacant lands to the south and west, and an existing industrial development to the southwest. And then we have a single-family subdivision to the northeast. Our project is surrounded by other land that could potentially develop and will need infrastructure. And Karma Labs is pleased to be part of the larger TID, the larger tax incremental district, being formed where the city has a broader vision for that surrounding area to develop in the future. And we serve as a bit of a catalyst, a spark for infrastructure build in that area. We're also sensitive to minimizing the impact on existing homes to the northwest. There's some realities to our product. Our product is small. This helps reduce truck traffic. We can fit a lot of these into a truck. All of our manufacturing and storage will be within the building walls. We've positioned docks to the north away from residents, and we also intend to add a landscaping buffer to our residential neighborhoods to the west. And the final slide that I have for you is a rendering of the corporate headquarters as shown. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, so looking at the top right now, where would that view be from? If I'm standing on 76th Street, am I looking at one of those? Or if I'm standing on Ryan, am I looking at, what am I looking at?
Yeah, I'm basically showing you both corners. This is, if we go back to the prior slide, please. You can see the corporate office is in front of the manufacturing center, and you're standing at the, I guess it would be the southeast corner, looking at the cafeteria. or the southwest corner looking at the other side of the office. So these are views from the parking lot from the angled sides.
You can go
Does that
back
make
to
sense?
this one. Okay, so from 76th Street, so you're not viewing any loading docks?
That is correct. I don't have that rendering for you, but essentially, if you walked around the building on the lower image, if you walked around the building to the left, that would be parallel to 76th Street, and there are no loading docks present there.
Good. Just a few more. So how many employees do you employ right now at your facility?
Our workforce is currently 300.
300. And you've been, the last few years, you've had upticks in employees, like you've increased your employees as the years, and I'm not looking to pin you down, but every year you've been adding to your work staff.
Yes, the natural growth of the business has resulted in additional work staff, and we have certain seasonality to our production cycles. So there's kind of a natural waxing and waning of the number of people that we have on site.
Excellent. And as you stated earlier, you own the 42 acres. This is, Karma Labs, Karma has come in and bought this large parcel of land.
That is
So you
correct.
committed to this community in a big way. So that was one of the points I wanted to make. So I'll yield for now. Mr. Barber?
Is there any need for a buffer to the north where Croatian Park adjoins you? Will they be looking at kind of a more industrial look, or is there going to be a berm there that would be, they do a lot of programs there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have an excellent relationship with the Croatian Park neighbors to the north. We're certainly open to those kinds of recommendations. As it is today, that is a view to the loading docks. But we've not heard any feedback from the Croatian Park that that's objectionable in any way.
It was just a thought, because they've been a good neighbor as well, so.
Yeah, agreed.
And the other thought I had is what's going to happen to your current facilities that you're in right now? What is the plan for that?
That's right. We are in 4 facilities in the Franklin Business Park. 2 of them we lease, 2 of them we own. We would vacate the leased buildings, and presumably other tenants would, move in ultimately. And then it's kind of yet to be determined, since we do own the 2 buildings, the ownership of Karma is determining what the final disposition of those buildings will be. One for sure, owners are interested in keeping for other purposes, and yet to be determined on the final.
Thank you.
Yep.
Alderwoman Day.
Hey, Karen, could you go back a slide or two till we get to the map, the rendering, please? Thank you.
Sure.
So if I'm looking at this right, we've got Ryan Road on the bottom, 76th
Yes.
Street on the left.
Yes.
And what I'm noticing is your projected building sits more toward the north side of the property. Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so my question is a little bit about the TID and the financing.
Sure.
With regard to the public infrastructure and the thought process of the additional money up front to run utilities, further away from where they currently are.
Yes.
Versus having the property a little bit further. I guess my question is, why did you pick that portion of the property to put your building?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess there are a number of factors in play. One I touched on during the presentation, where there's really the sloping landscape, so it makes sense to locate the building at the crest of that. The other aspect that's in play is that we are considering the development of the 2 lots at the bottom. So that takes away from that potential usable space for future expansion. And I think the third element is that Karma Labs is genuinely interested in having some, a substantial amount of green space around the property, for the benefit of the employees and just the natural look. But we also have a future expansion plan that includes potentially expanding to the east, to the north, and parking lot to the south. So we're trying to optimize where that all sits. And we think we have it with this.
And so then with the sloping that you mentioned, is there any concern then that it does hinder a little bit the type of development that would be able to come into those outlots? if there's not as much usable space, as you said, with the sloper, that it would be more expensive to kind of level that out, or like the challenges of developing those areas then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not skilled as a developer, so this is my opinion and not professional engineering opinion. But the slope of the land exists, but it's fairly gradual, and while it is pretty substantial from the north portion all the way down to the south, if you're talking about just those parcels at the south, it's not extensive.
And then my last question, just because there was public comment tonight, and I've seen and heard a little bit of chatter with the same type of question. If you wouldn't mind addressing the question that was brought up tonight about why you're asking for additional money from the city to help with the development, or to get this project started?
Sure, absolutely. So there are very real infrastructure costs to bring infrastructure to the facility. There's also very real benefit to the city for supporting the world headquarters of Karma Labs in the city, and additional tax increment that's generated. So we see this as an opportunity for, the type of collaboration between business and city to encourage development and keeping the larger TID district vision in mind. This is the first spark in that district for development.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep.
If I could slide one. I just wanted to kind of close this out a little bit unless there's more talk up here and questions. But one of the points up here, this has been your home since 1970.
It has.
I mean, that's a huge statement. I mean, other than Always Apple Orchard from 1950.
Yep.
I mean, there's not many other ones that can make that claim.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of our city, has been a big part of kind of what was our brand. And I also want to mention, you do have Franklin on your product. I mean, there's a lot of really a lot of pluses.
We do indeed.
That I know I personally took an interest in wanting to see this come to fruition. So I'm very happy, and we're very fortunate that Karma is looking to invest back in our community and expand and make this your world headquarters. That's a big deal too, world headquarters.
Yes.
Moving in the future. So I thank all of you, and it's been fantastic working with you and your team. They've been excellent, and I've learned a lot, and we've had a lot of meetings, and I know that's maybe not be the norm, but this project wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
This was a big deal.
Yep.
It was a big deal that we could not lose. So.
Thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. It's the truth. Mr. Holfer.
I would also like to say thank you. I've had the opportunity to tour and watch the operations, a first-class job that you do there. I'm excited to see it happen.
Yep.
And I can't remember how many times on vacation I've been in another part of the country, and you'll either see it in the store or somebody pulls the little red
Right.
cap out in front of you. So
A source of pride, right?
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to help you guys get this underway.
Thank you.
Anything further from the council before we go into close? Oh, Mr. Craig.
We had talked when I was fortunate enough to get a tour of your facilities, and,
Sure.
As Alderman Halfer says, top-notch facilities, and.
Thank you.
Well, but I'm sure that, the argument of, being able to modernize, being able to consolidate, there's certainly value in that.
Yes.
But my concern moving forward is that, as you mentioned previously on your first slide, that, you have a footprint in 65 plus countries.
Yes.
That as the world shrinks and, where getting from one end of the globe to the other isn't going to be as much of an ask, or maybe as fuel kind of roller coasters up and down.
Sure.
That my worry is that those 300 employees that you have now,
Yes.
that manufacturing facility you have now,
Yes.
that where some things start getting cut off, and you know what, you have a growing market in the South Pacific, and
Yeah.
some of that gets redeployed to Taiwan or Singapore or something like that, and then maybe something in Northern Africa to emerge into Europe or something like that. And then we don't have as vibrant of a facility as what we would have today.
Right.
That would be my biggest concern because of, where if that number 3 marker of where you're at today, and there's just that ceiling that you just can't break through because you're competing against, I think it's Clorox and Pfizer, are the parent companies of your 2 other competitors?
Yeah, I guess I can, in terms of the ceiling there's a pretty big distance between number 3 and number 2. So there's a lot of market share to be gained there. And a lot of that market share is in the US, and the majority of our business is in the US. And today we have no plans to really offshore that.
Okay.
This is a product that's made in the US, crafted in Wisconsin, made in Franklin, Wisconsin. That's our model today, and I don't have a, stronger answer than that, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, that's,
I have a couple answers.
yeah.
Who are you, sir?
My name's Rich Simonson. Most, I think,
Yeah.
Rich, you mind coming up, please? Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Rich Simonson, Chief Operating Officer at CarMax.
We have your home address, sir.
That's your address.
7191 South 37th Street, Franklin.
Franklin?
We have some property in Franklin. Yep. I'm a Franklin taxpayer.
Thank you, sir.
A couple things to your question. First and foremost, as it relates to risk in the city, the developers or the proposed developers agreement guarantees for the life of the TID to fund that minimum obligation from the city. So regardless of, how well business goes up or down, that obligation is going to be fulfilled to the city within those words, within that contract. Second thing is to Alex's point, only about 20% of our sales is global. And so while we're a global company, it's really not the bulk of what we do.
Okay.
So the volume of the growth is kind of resides in the U.S., the domestic market. Specifically to your point, last year about this time I was on a mission to evaluate our cost structure in terms of, is there offshoring options that are cheaper than what we have in the United States? Labor in the United States, as everyone knows, is more elevated than most parts of the world. But our cost structure is heavily weighted on materials and ingredients, and regardless of where you need to send those, they're relatively the same price. Labor is still high, but we have a lot of automation and a big commitment to additional automation to optimize that. So very minimal risk in addition to our parts being small. It's just not cost effective to offshore, which is a big part of why we're here tonight.
That's tremendous to hear. I thank you for
Yeah.
that. For that clarification.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing?
Mr.
real quick,
Hofer.
too?
Sure.
Can you touch upon the fact that you also try to be as sustainable as possible? So a lot of conservation, energy efficiency, all of those things, which are
Correct.
very important.
That's
Yes.
right. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but sustainability is one of our key pillars of our strategy, sustainability, regulatory responsibility. It's part of our values, not just to our employees, but to our consumers, to our community. We're members of this community as well as everybody else. So we're trying to do the right thing, certainly our level best. There's some options. Some options we're finding are a little more emotionally benefited than true sustainability, but we're really leaning in on that, and our owners are supportive of that effort as well. And you'll start to see some of that in some of our potential building designs and infrastructure when we get into the details.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just
Alderman
just a very quick comment. As a pharmacist for many years, I really recommended this CarMax product lots and lots of times. Had very positive feedback from patients. So
Excellent.
I'm really very proud to see this company in Franklin, and I hope that it will continue to be here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Thank you, Alderman. Anyone else at this point? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are going to now entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I will make that motion.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
I
A
second.
first and a second. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call. Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
No.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no, no abstention. Motion.
Thank you.
Potential motion is a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a tax incremental development district number 9, creation thereof in process, development agreement between the City of Franklin and Karma Laboratories, Inc., developer, 225,000 square foot corporate headquarters building at northeast corner of West Ryan Road and South 76th Street project.
So moved.
Second?
Hopfer and Barber, could we have a roll call on this, please, Madam Clerk?
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
No.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no, no abstentions. Motion carries. Let's see here. G19, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a development agreement for public improvements with Karma Laboratories, Inc., located at 9410 South 76th Street and 7520 West Ryan Road. Tax key number 884-9997-000 and 884-9998-000.
So moved.
Second?
We have a first and a second. I would also like to do a roll call vote on this, please, Madam Clerk.
City
Jesse.
Attorney.
Oh, Mr. City Attorney, I didn't see your hand there. Hold on, so you're not live yet, sir.
Asking the city engineer, is this ready to proceed at this point? I know in the common council action sheet that was prepared by the assistant city engineer, that his recommended motion is to adopt the resolution, subject to potential changes to the agreement with the final form and content to be approved by the city engineer and the city attorney. And that is not set forth in the resolution, and if that's the intent, instead of just leaving it in the motion, I think for clarity purposes, since the resolution would be signed, et cetera, ultimately, is to include that in the now therefore provision.
So yeah, that change can be made, and I think it's okay to accept. As a little background, we typically have projects a little more developed at this stage when we sign this, but we left the language vague enough. I think we're okay with doing this, to ensure that they're doing a sidewalk and to ensure that they're doing the sanitary sewer and ensure that they are doing the street program.
Well, it would be basically that ad, it will say something akin to that, my recommendation or a motion.
So it should be the current recommended motion, and we're going to add what to that? So we can, I just want to put your legalese on it so we have a clear motion, and we'll do a roll call vote on this as well.
And the now therefore, at the last line, the subdivision development agreement on behalf of the city with Karma Laboratories, Inc., I would put a comma, in the form and content as approved by the city engineer and the city attorney.
And that's the motion?
that's correct to include that addition to the resolution. Now therefore provision.
I would agree too.
I second that.
Okay, so we've got a first, Hofer,
We have it.
second, Barber.
Meaning that it's a motion to adopt a resolution number 2023, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a development agreement for public improvements with Karma Laboratories, Inc., located at 9410 South 76th Street and 7250 West Ryan Road. Tax key numbers set forth therein.
7520 West Ryan Road? I heard 7250.
Oh, 7520 West Ryan Road. And the motion would include with the change to the now therefore, as I previously said, and the clerk can put that to the minutes.
Okay, that's your first, Mr. Hofer?
Correct.
That's your second, Mr. Barber?
Yep.
Okay, well, do we roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk?
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
No.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 no, no abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Item G20, a motion to enter a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985, Sub 1, Sub E, for market competition and bargaining reasons to deliberate and consider terms relating to potential commercial, industrial, manufacturing developments and proposals, and the investing of public funds and governmental actions in relation thereto, and to affect such developments, including the terms and provisions of potential development agreements for, including but not limited to, the properties at the southeast corner of South Oakwood Park Drive and West Ryan Road, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first, Hofer, second, Eichmann. Roll call, please. Yes.
Alderman Holfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. We are almost in closed session at 9 o'clock on the head.
You're running late.
I know. Loudly.
Green light.
Green light. Okay, we are back in open session again, and it is now 9:29 PM. Mr. City Attorney, could you say the suggested motion again?
A motion to direct staff to proceed as discussed in closed session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second by Hofer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moving forward. G21. Discussion of a West Putes Road pathway from South 76th Street to West St. Martin's Road. Mr. Engineer. Hey, there you go.
Okay. Putes Road has been in bad shape since long before I got here, almost 9 years ago. We have tried many times to try to make application for grants. It just doesn't compete very well with the other roads within the Milwaukee metropolitan area. This road does not qualify for street impact fees because it doesn't really support new growth. We're not looking to widen it. Ideally, we'd like to take Putes and take the section from 76th to 43rd and take that same cross section from 43rd to 27th and also 76th to St. Martin's.
They have to be able to. view.
Audio is on.
They have to be able to view. That's on the top of the agenda.
I mean, I don't know what to
the outage, the cameras never went back on. I'm sure they.
It appears we have audio working, and we have no control over the other part of that. Okay, well, there we go.
There we go.
One person watching.
Good, perfect. Let's just, right there. Perfect. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned it. Mr. City Engineer, please continue.
Okay, so I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but Peace Road really needs some love, and I'm not sure how to do it. It's just a very expensive project. It has no shoulders. You drop off quickly into wetlands. Utilities, especially power poles, crowd the road. It's just a mess. The pavement condition is very bad, and there's some hills that probably should be shaved and so forth. So we had a long discussion last week at Board of Public Works regarding Putes Road, and the decision was let's go ahead and try to pave it next year. So you're going to see a recommendation that we're going to pulverize Putes Road and relay it with some surface that should last for, what a typical road would. The problem is that doesn't really help out the pedestrians and bicycles and other things that are up and down through there. So we have, we just finished the discussion at the Board of Public Works that, tell you what, let's go ahead and just pave it like we normally would, but let's try to get a grant for a pathway. And it's probably half dozen as far as which side of the road we do a pathway on. But so we're looking from 76 to St. Martin's, either a pathway on the south side or a pathway on the north side. There are grants that were possibly available for trail projects, and we can look at our 62%, and I'm not sure when that would happen, but the thought is that if you're amiable to this idea, I'd like to have a neighborhood meeting with the residents, because there are either 11 or 13 parcels, depending on which side we go on. We would have to acquire some right of way. And there's some properties that are just crowded too much. So it would be a big project. So if the idea interests you, I would, again, have a neighborhood meeting to at least gather some initial feedback and possibly even talk about consultants and at least try to get a grant application in. There's a TAP, Transportation Alternative Program with the DOT. It's not quite as nice as the CMAQ that we have for 116th Street, but this might be a very competitive grant for that because of, and again, there's lots of wetland issues. There's just lots of issues that need to be overcome. So it's going to be a very expensive project, but we could possibly get a grant to pay for most or all of that. So at the will of the Common Council, if the idea suits you, I want to go ahead and start working on that, and we'll return more with more issues.
Hold on, Mr. Ofer. Mr. City Engineer, so if you were to have the options combined, am I looking at this that you like A and B perhaps combined in this motion? Under options A and the options B and C, I mean.
No, so option A is basically proceed with contacting neighbors. Let's talk about a Putes Road corridor pathway, if you will.
Okay.
Option B is just go ahead and do the paving program and just don't even mess with trying to do a pathway for future. And then, of course, other direction staff, if you have another idea, just leave it as, one is proceed with paving, but try to look at doing a pathway. Option B is just do the paving program next year. Don't do a pathway. Don't even think about it. And so that's the difference between the two.
Mr. Ofer, you got the floor?
I was just going to say that I received numerous calls over the last 2 years.
Yes.
Regarding the condition of the road and the safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, easy for me to say, and that type of thing. So I would definitely want to have outreach with the neighbors and see what their preference would be.
Ideally, on one side of the road, all 13 or all 11 neighbors would say, yeah, I'd be willing to sell property, but invariably there's going to be at least a few on each side that says not in my front yard. So we'll have to have that discussion later.
I just wanted to say I also agree with Ed. I get constant complaints as well about the road, and how it's not safe and so forth, and people like can barely go out and get their mail. And so I appreciate the idea of having a neighborhood meeting, of course, too. I think that would be definitely the way to go, and to proceed with option A is my personal thought.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, maybe we'll entertain a motion on this. Oh, Danielle?
The only thing I want to say is I know that it says here that there's an unknown budget and would be eligible for park impact fees, but I just want to make everybody aware that there is a limited supply of park
Right.
impact fees, and we have multiple large projects going on. And so I'm not sure which ones would take precedent over others, but the more that we add to it, the less impact fees we will have available. So if we don't have those available for some of these projects, then we have to consider other resources for that. So we just have to watch what
Understand.
projects we're approving. So I will try to get a better understanding on the park impact fees, hopefully by the next meeting.
Yes, I think on that point, the big fear was having to return fees. And I know earlier in the year, the budget, or the impact fees budget, I think was right at 6 million mark. I'm not sure what it is now. But that was like January, so I'm not sure what it is.
That might be for all impact fees,
Everything,
not just
right.
for park, though.
No.
So we need to see just for park how much is available.
Okay, any further discussion on this? If not, we'll entertain.
I would just hope if it comes down to picking and choosing, we would pick the ones that are safety over amenities.
I would refer to the city attorney on
Yeah.
how projects
Right.
get picked for impact fee use.
Yeah, I do believe that this one would rank very well if it competitive because of just the safety issues. I mean, I can't say that people have been struck, but just the lack that there is no safe place to walk, I think would make this rank very well. So I would hope that we could get a 90-10 project.
Good. Seeing no further discussion, do we have a motion on this?
I would move that we direct staff to proceed with contacting the neighbors on Pute's Road.
Second,
So that would be option A is your motion, sir?
Correct.
and I would like to second it.
Okay, we got a first and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Excellent. Let's see here. Move on to licenses. Let's see, who's doing licenses? Oh. Alderwoman Day, you have licenses, you got the floor.
All right, License Committee met earlier this evening. One page of possible approvals. Just briefly, the top two were extraordinary event, entertainment special event. Then we had 7 operator licenses and 1 Class B change of agent. All items were approved and are now in front of you for final approval.
Can we please add in that I abstained
Sure.
from the operator license for the Franklin Lioness Lions Club, again, being a member of the Lioness Lions Club, that I did
Sure.
abstain from that in licensing.
Yes,
And I will
all-
have to abstain from that now, too.
All items were approved, 3 ayes, no nos, except for Lindsay Safranek, which was 2 ayes, no nos, and 1 abstention, but all were approved to move forward.
Okay, very good. Mr. Holfer.
Can you fill us in on the details for the fireworks display and discrepancies between last time?
Sure. Initially, 2 weeks ago, you'll remember, you would have seen Lux Golf Bays, their first anniversary firework display. They had submitted an application initially to do the event on Saturday, August 19th. When they came to the License Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, they wanted to amend their application and essentially rescind it because they had already been approved for fireworks on that Friday, August 18th, as a part of their normal fireworks special events for the Milkmen Games. So we proceeded with that at that time. Came to find out that some of the parameters that were in their original firework approval for the normal Friday Milkmen Games did not match up exactly apples to apples with what they wanted to do for this event on the 18th. The clerk's office advised them to reapply and just do a standalone application for fireworks on that Friday night. So the fireworks on Friday night will be starting almost immediately after the Milkmen game, as they normally would, so somewhere between 9 and 9:30 probably. The event will last approximately 20 minutes, but not go any longer than 10:30. So say, for some reason, the Milkmen game went into extra innings, and it ended at 10:20, they would only be able to do fireworks up until 10:30 as their other, as similar to their other approvals. So everything else is the same. It was just the duration of time, instead of a max of 10 minutes, is now a max of 20 minutes. And they also have a different firework provider, which was approved by the fire department prior to our meeting.
So they're advertising the largest fireworks display in southeastern Wisconsin is what's being advertised. So they're going to do that in 20 minutes?
So I brought that up this evening. Steve Taylor was there representing The Rock. I did bring up the post that you are referencing. I saw it as well. And he said that that is not correct, that it is nowhere near the biggest fireworks show in the state by volume or duration or whatnot, that he didn't really have an answer as to why that particular advertisement was worded in that way.
Yeah, I don't mind me chiming in. I took it as Supervisor Taylor was unsure.
Mr. Hofer, were you yielding?
Oh, I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I apologize.
Alderwoman Eichman, you now have the floor.
I took it under the thought that Supervisor Taylor just was not familiar with that ad going out there. I didn't take it as he's saying that, no, it's wrong, or no, it's not going to be the biggest fireworks show. That was my interpretation of our discussion with him, but I'm not sure, Alderman Craig, if you have any insight on that being your district.
Oh, he also maintained that it was,
correct.
It was a little more braggadocious than actual statement of fact. Very much like saying that we have hamburgers stacked to the ceiling, and, if you look at the amount of hamburgers, there's a little bit of space between the top hamburger and the ceiling itself.
So that's how I took it.
I mean, it will certainly be a longer duration than the normal Friday fireworks, but it is a one-time event and within the 9 to 10:30 timeframe that they use for their other events.
My understanding is he intends to do that in the fifth year as well. That's what they told me. So, what's the difference in time between the normal and what this would be? I know you said this is 20 minutes. What's the normal?
10.
So, how little time?
Yes.
Well, as long as we have that hard stop in here.
Yeah.
Hard stop is 10:30, 20-minute show. Any further discussion? Okay, we had a first, we have a second on this?
Second.
Second by Alderman Craig. All those in favor?
This is for the full list?
Is this, or do we have to?
With the abstention.
Full list with the abstention. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The one abstention on the one item. Moving on to item I, Ida, vouchers and payroll approval. Motion approving the following: city vouchers with an ending date of August 10th, 2023, in the amount of $2,337,508.47. Payroll dated August 11th, 2023, in the amount of $468,337.36, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $248,550.09, plus city matching payments, and estimated payroll dated August 25th, 2023, in the amount of $660,000 in payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $552,000 plus city matching payments.
So move.
You have to add the additional. I don't think that was,
Well, I think you approved it earlier tonight.
because it was approved in the motion earlier, it doesn't have to be approved again here.
I would reference it.
Reference.
So we will reference the earlier total amount of, it's a flat 143?
143,000.
And what was the council meeting item number?
Item G8, G as in George 8, for $143,000. We will add that in. So,
As amended.
as amended?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Holper as amended. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nos, motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Holper and Eichmann, all's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We are adjourned.